welcome everybody to another episode of Studio 6 Paranormal Productions Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Hill. Tonight we have a very special guest. He's actually one of our hometown favorites. Um, his name is Joe Diamond, and I'm going to read you a little bit about him so that you kind of get an idea. Joe Diamond isn't really a magician. He's been hailed as America's greatest mind reader. He may look like a normal guy, but he's turned his fascination for the strange and mysterious into a full-time career. He's a world record holder for solving the world's largest corn maze, blindfolded. Wow, that's something. He even hacked the Pentagon without a computer on live radio. Wow. His appearances include WGN, ABC, The Today Show, Showtime, and even Netflix. He's used to host his own personal talk show called Unreal Radio on AM 1050 WLIP radio in Kenosha, and has appeared on over 150 podcasts and radio programs including WGN 95 Will Rock, Star 105, and legendary program Coast to Coast AM. He's an artist in residence at the Dole Musician in Crystal Lake, where he's won Best of the Fox for live theater. And the mayor of Crystal Lake declared November 16th as Joe Diamond Day. You can see Joe and his various media appearances at www.joediamondlive.com/media. So without further ado, let's get this gentleman on the show. Hey.
Thanks, man. When you say all that together, it really sounds like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It really, really does. When it's all put together like that, for me, it's 15 years of a lot of like cool moments in between a lot of weird odds and ends gigs, but all together like that. Wow, I sound like an expert. So thanks for making me sound like an expert.
you sounded pretty good. I mean, some of that stuff I never even realized. I think we've met once, and I know you from around town and Lake Geneva and the Maxwell Mansion, where you do your performing for some Saturday nights and stuff. And I did my podcast there for a year, and the people at the Maxwell Mansion were just simply fantastic for having you and I there. I mean, it was just
the Maxwell is great, and the staff has always been wonderful. The people have who come through there. It's amazing how I don't have there's a lot of places I have a lot of regulars who come see me on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. And as raw percentage, I don't have as many at the Maxwell. Like the Maxwell, I think has the highest, I would say, turnover of always new people.
Yeah.
However, the type of people, the consistency of the people that place attracts, is truly amazing and truly wonderful, and it's a very special place. It's one of the things that I love about being at many of the places I'm at, but that place in particular is you walk up to it and you're already in awe when you're just walking up to the place. It's such a beautiful thing.
I would totally agree. I had my first gallery reading there a couple years ago, and that was amazing in itself. The people were just amazing. So let's get into a little bit about who Joe Diamond is. Let's talk a little bit about how you got started in the paranormal or your gifts or whatnot, and what transcended you into doing what you're doing now.
The short answer, Ghostbusters. the long answer.
I'll take that answer. No, that's a great answer. I mean,
it's to be fair, it is only part of the answer for sure. But if we open it up and look at it a little bit more in context, despite my baby face, I look great for my 40s, but awful for my 20s, and we'll leave it at that. So if you're doing the math at home, I was born in the late 80s. And that was right after the Ghostbusters craze. So when I got into Ghostbusters, it was the end of the cartoon show.
Yeah.
And I didn't process why I was the only one into it at the time. I just knew it was a weird thing that I was the only one into. But everyone now it was like super popular, and it took me a long time to realize, like, oh, I was like a good decade after the craze. I was a good decade after the popularity of it. And then because of that, I was really into getting books from the library on all sorts of paranormal topics, UFOs, ghosts, crop circles. The great thing about those books, they have a lot of big words. So by the time I got to second grade, I had a 12th grade reading level, which sounds impressive. But I still have a 12th grade reading level. I peaked early. My great grandmother really took a liking to a lot of the stuff I was doing. Like every kid, I got a magic kit, and she started teaching me how to read playing cards, like tarot cards. So I was, and again, this was just, I didn't see all these different things as different things. I learned about Harry Houdini and his involvement, or dare I say, war with spiritualism in the later in his life. But that linked me into Sherlock Holmes and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and his belief and advocacy of spiritualism in his life. And so I was always in all these different arenas, but it's I never processed it as, being all different, all part of the same thing, if that makes sense.
No,
it took me a really long time to process that. So I did improv in my early teen years. And then in my later teen years, I got a job. So David Blaine was super popular in those early 2000s. So the theme park in our neck of the woods, Six Flags Great America, was doing auditions. They were looking for street performers. And I auditioned to be a street magician, but I showed up and just did like some mind reading stuff. I also learned from an early age that I could bend metal. Uri Geller was a big childhood influence on me as well. And again, this was just something I could do. I didn't see it as like, I basically was just learning about as many party stunts as possible because I was an awkward only child and was trying to get as many. Well, here's the other thing about the awkward only child thing, which I haven't gotten into in a lot of places. My mom's from a family of like 7. My dad's from a family of 5. So I have 2 huge families of cousins.
Oh, wow.
So when I go to family events, I don't tell the story too much because I don't want to rake my family over the coals too much, or at least not for this. But there was a Christmas where I was forgotten. Like, I did not get gifts. Just because I had no siblings to remind the aunts and uncles, some of the aunts and uncles, oh yeah, we got to get Joe a gift. So like doing all this stuff was kind of my way of, look, I exist, kind of, not to get too Freudian on all this, but we're digging deep. Like you said, let's find out not just, how I got into this, but why I got into this. And so, so they really responded to the more weirder stuff, not just, a more traditional card trick. And by the end of that summer, I was just doing mind reading. There was one day, because it's 7 hours a day out on the streets, of an amusement park. And they're just like, go entertain people. So like there was one day, and you get sick of doing the same thing over and over. Well, something like palm reading is always different. Learning to read palm, like I'd already done some palm reading, but doing it over and over and over, one person after another. So after that first summer, especially after the second summer, they always say it takes 10,000 hours. I did the math. I got it at by the age of 18, which is, at the time, I didn't realize how lucky I was, how much I was able to develop and try and fail. Because if it failed, okay, well, you all have a great day at Six Flags Great America. See you later. Walk over. Hi, how's everyone doing today? Just find a new group, there's thousands of people, and they're about to go on the world's greatest coasters. So if I fail at something, I'm going to be barely a blip on the radar of their experience. So it was fine. So that was a great experience for me. And so after high school, that's when I started doing just, psychic entertainment full time. Mm-hmm. And you might be thinking, well, how many people really want to seek psychic advice from an 18-year-old? Well, again, at the time, this didn't seem like a blessing, but looking back on it, it was a way to get as much work as possible for my age at the time. Mm-hmm. When I moved into my first apartment was 2008. Wow. Not like everyone was, tight on money and looking for some guidance and everything after, around that time, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Which is why when 2020 happened, I was like, oh, this is going to be a breeze. This is going to be fine. I can do this.
I can relate to this.
This is fine. Yeah, exactly. What? We're all connected to our computers now and I can perform from home? Oh, even better.
Fantastic.
But this is a huge head start that I didn't have then. So I was doing a lot of psychic house parties. I did where I would do that was my excuse to I would do, even though no one wanted the show really, they just wanted me to do readings for all their guests. Mm-hmm. But I would say, as a bonus, you get a show, a mind reading show. And that was my excuse to just keep working on my mind reading show all the time. And so I kept working on that. And that's what eventually led me into doing theaters in Chicago, venues like the Dole Mansion, the Maxwell Mansion. And it has turned into, this career of full-time jobs, of theaters, corporate events. And it's, I've been, everyone says, I've worked really hard and, oh, you're so driven and you're so good and passionate and all this other stuff. But I also have to just throw my hands up and just say, I've also been very, very lucky because mm-hmm. there's a lot of people in the Midwest or a lot of people in the industry who don't live in the Midwest or do, but who are in the entertainment business, who don't get to sleep in their bed most of the year. And I do just from that standpoint. And I get to create all my material. I get to, write my own shows. I don't have people, telling me what I can and can't do for the most part. Sometimes I have to, be within, if I do a show at a school or something, they'll be like, okay, well, you can't say, this, or you can't do this. I have one routine where I talk about solving the world's largest corn maze blindfolded. And I recreate it by putting on a blindfold, a balloon's bounced around the room. And then I'll take out a safety pin or a dart, and I'll do contact mind reading. Kreskin does this a lot for finding his check and everything. But I'll have someone hold my wrist, and we'll walk around the room, and I'll eventually pop the balloon. And even in a school, some schools don't want me walking around even with a safety pin. They're like, no, we can't have you.
Oh, good Lord.
Make a tiny pin in a very hard skull of a kid and draw a little bit of blood. It's like, I'm insured, and also it's not that sharp, and also I'm a professional. It's not going to happen. I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it was 1,000% safe. But that's where the showbiz part comes in. That's where I also along the way I met some sword swallowers who taught me how to hammer a nail into my nose and stick my hand into an animal trap, and learn some sideshow stunts along the way.
So I don't think you're gonna. Yeah, I don't think you're gonna be putting that in your act anytime soon.
Oh, it has been. It was. Oh, okay. My paranormal show opened with me hammering a nail into my nose. We can get into that in a moment. But I learned how to make dangerous seeming stuff look dangerous when in fact it was quite safe.
Right.
So real quick on hammering the nail in my nose. So when I started doing my so I had a show called Just Paranormal. It was just called Paranormal. Because the paranormal activity movies were popular, and I knew if I had a show called Paranormal, people would buy tickets, and I was right.
Okay.
But I was still in my early 20s and still figuring all this out. Mm-hmm. And there were some people who were expecting a straight-up magic show. There were some coming expecting a medium. There were some coming expecting like a blood and guts kind of, like if you a few years ago. And I liked the show. My wife didn't like it quite as much, but there was that show Paranormal Cirque that came through the Midwest, where it was like, it was acrobats, but also dancing, but also zombie clowns and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I think some people were expecting that. So no one was coming and expecting the same thing, which was a good thing, but also maybe not a great thing. Mm-hmm. So I eventually stopped doing the first routine and made it the second routine, and started doing the human blockhead piece. So that's what's called when you hammer a nail in your nose. And I started opening with that because no matter what you were expecting, it wasn't this. So you couldn't have been disappointed. So, because it just was so, rather than trying to exceed the expectations or meet them or anything, I just kind of walked around them. It was just so out of left field. And also because I noticed for the people expecting like a trick, trying to see through like, okay, he's going to try and like trick us. It's not, it's a real skill. So there was that. The people expecting something, you know, more, you know, so it kind of, it fit all the things. And the challenge that my sideshow mentor taught me or challenged me with it was you have to take this absolutely disgusting act and make it, he said, make it beautiful. And or at the very least charming. I tried to make it charming and fun and silly and you know and still and the hook was this is the world's oldest surgical procedure, and they would actually do this. They would drill holes into their head because apparently that would cure headaches and also increase psychic ability because it would literally open their minds up to the spirits. So this was my version of trepanning. So that was the opening hook for it. And it worked. I don't do it as much anymore. I haven't done it in a couple years, just because that is where COVID tests went. Like literally, like so the COVID tests went up more. The nail goes more straight back. So even I was uncomfortable with them, and people are still. It still wasn't a pleasant experience for most people, and I don't want to. Let's get a little bit more distance on all of that before I bring that back. Is kind of how I feel. So yeah, but I liked the idea of, again, paranormal just means outside of the normal, and also for the people who thought it was impossible, right out the bat, I'm showing them something that is possible. You just stopped thinking too soon. Right out the bat, within the first minute of the show, we are doing something that shows that, you know, we are, and with our human bodies, our bodies are more amazing than you think they are. And like, this is, you know, some people found it gross, some people looked away, and for a Halloween show and all that, and a show called Paranormal, it was within that realm. Never did it at like a corporate event or a cocktail party. If I did, I don't think I'd ever get booked back. I stuck with
No, you probably would not.
Just the mind reading is weird enough in those situations.
Right. So get into a little bit of your mind reading stuff, because of the fact that I've heard, you know, stuff around town that, you know, people think very highly of you. You come highly recommended to go to a show. So, and there was one time you were at the Maxwell Mansion and I wanted to go, but because of the fact that I had company late and I wasn't able to, and I'm just like, okay, I need to catch his show, and I plan on it. Talk a little bit about, once that started taking off, when did you realize that was a real deal? I mean, it was a real thing once you really started doing it and said, hey, you know what, I think that I really have something here.
I'm still not sure. To be fair, there's still days where I'm like, like if all goes south, I can still get a job in marketing, right? Like I can still do that, right? Like worst case scenario. No, but I mean, so a little bit of that. I mean, I think like, are you talking like? I guess there's two ways your question could go, and if it's both, that's fine.
It hit you? When did it hit you that you're like, this is something I can really do? I mean, really do, and do well.
Like the skill itself, or do it like commercially, like as a job?
Both actually.
Both. Okay.
Yeah.
I went to a religious school. And when some of the teachers and parents were pulling me aside saying, you got to be careful with some of this, you know, mind stuff, Joe, the devil can use it as a way in. That's how I knew it was good.
Right.
Yeah. Like that's how I knew, like, oh, if adults are scared of me.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that, like, when you know this stuff and you know it's got nothing to do with the devil and Satan and all this other stuff. Like, again, like the more I often say like the only, you know, the people who are the most scared are the ones who know the least, you know, like just taking the Ouija board, for example. Like if you actually look into the history and see like, oh yeah, it was America's first patent battle. And, the planchette is the actual, oracle and all. The more you know about it, the more it's like, oh yeah, no, this is okay. Yeah, there's a million friend of friend of friend of friend of friend stories, but as far as actual documented stuff and where it actually comes from, the more you know about it, the more you research it, the more, the more comfortable, the more you become the expert at something. It's, it kind of is the equivalent of like you becoming very, very good at chess and someone else coming up to you going, oh, you play chess? Oh, I'm pretty good at that checkers chess game. And you're like, oh, are you?
Are you?
And meanwhile, you're Bobby Fischer. Like you're not going to be a jerk about it. You're not going to rub it in their faces.
Right.
But if they want to challenge you to a game, you'll be like, okay, all right, let's go. So when they were saying that stuff about, and again, the more I do believe in the more, for lack of a better term, non-physical aspects of it. I do use a lot of psychology. There is a lot of just straight up science and theater and a lot of that kind of boring aspects to, the show business part of this being a job. Just for example, real quick, and this isn't giving anything away. This isn't, ruining it for anybody, but at my show at the Woodstock Opera House, 411 seats sold out. For my grand finale, we had to rehearse because we had a camera on stage. I projected up onto a screen that had to zoom in and track me as I turned the last card over to show it was the card the person I've been thinking of the entire show. Because again, like the people in the very back couldn't see it. We had to practice that multiple times. And also I had to have in my head, okay, if any of this technology breaks, I know what I have to do to really sell to the back of the house that this is the right card without any technology. I had to have all that in mind. None of that had anything to do with mind reading. None of that had anything to do with how I knew what the card was even. So I had to have all those other skills developed and held on to. So there is plenty of that stuff. When I thought, oh, I could really do this as a job, I was 14, maybe 15, and my dad's cousin was president of a biker club, like on like the Wisconsin-Illinois border, and it was Uncle Bob and Aunt Joni. And I'm like 14, 15. I'm walking around. And at the time, I was just like telling people what cards they were thinking of, what the card meant for like a cartomancy type reading. And like had like a list of objects, or people think of objects. And I told them what objects they were imagining, like that type of stuff, like very basic stuff at the time. And they were freaking out so much of that. And my aunt would be walking around with a beer pitcher going, come on, that was pretty good. Give the kid $1. And like, and holding the beer pitcher out. And like, we had to refill like 3 or 4 times, and like that was my job. Like that was like that instant gratification of like, oh my gosh, I'm good at something. They're giving me money. Like, oh, I can do this as a career, like
there's
as a job. Yeah, exactly. And if they didn't like it, they very often put $1 in anyway for me to leave. So
it was a win-win.
Yeah. All right. I'll go away for $1. I'll still go away for $1.
Right.
Well, maybe 5. Maybe 5.
Maybe 5.
There's been inflation.
There you go. Yeah. So you talk about the Opera House. That's one place that I've actually been wanting to do a psychic walkthrough for a while, and I love the ambience of that building. And you've had such great success there. Like you said, you sold out seats, and you probably get a lot of different emotional states when you go through that building. I mean, just even the history even downtown in Woodstock. I mean,
yes,
you probably get a lot of that different types of energy, especially with a collective of different people, watching your show. And is that sometimes a little bit overwhelming for you, or do you just know that you have guards up place that you can protect yourself from that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more concerned about people being draining than places personally. Right. I definitely one of the big techniques I use a lot in my show, and I don't talk about this a ton just because it doesn't come up in a lot of places, and also a lot of people don't get the difference when it comes to psychic phenomena and all this stuff. So I'm going to take a very, very quick side tangent and come back to locations and emotions and all that in a moment. But like when people often joke like, oh, can you give me the lottery numbers? Like part of like the nerd part of my brain is like, that's precognition. That's not mind reading. That's not a skill I have, blah, blah, blah. Right. I can get a read on you and get a read on what I think you're going to choose in a moment, which is a form of, mind reading, telepathy, person reading, that kind of stuff. But that's not looking into the future. Right, I've had vibes and I've made predictions for various stunts and using a variety of different oracles and stuff like that. I will just say, notice I have not gotten comfortable enough with that to be in my regular shows, and we will leave it at that. Right. So, but again, I'll do them as what they would call in show business or the sideshows ballyhoos, as what Dr. David Hoy used to do was hurling the headlines, where he would just make lots of predictions and that kind of stuff. And I think, and I don't feel too bad making those, because I think we all have vibes of what's going to happen. Oh, yeah, we all have. And that's the thing too. Like so going into this, it's like we all have vibes going into place. Like, oh, this place is spooky, is weird. And it doesn't have to be a historical building. It could be a brand new place. And it's like, Right. Oh, something. And then you find out like one of the construction workers died while they were building the place or something. Like, well, it comes on to yay. Stuff like that. So one of the things I use a lot is psychometry. Now, I assume this is the type of program where I don't have to explain it but I'm going to predict now for the two people listening or watching who don't know. Psychometry literally means soul measuring. It's the idea that, like, for example, well, actually, not even my ring. Like, let's say you have some change in your pocket. That's just change in your pocket you happen to have on any given day. But if you have a lucky coin that you've carried with you for years, that's become a talisman, something that, a lot of your energy has been put into. And if someone so if someone were to hold on to it, the theory behind it is that it's absorbed a part of your personality and even a part of your soul. And the ability to pick up on those vibrations is psychometry. Well, objects and places are buildings, and buildings are objects too. So when you're not just holding a place, but you're in the thing, it's coming at you from all sides. So I think I think psychometry is more of a muscle than an ability that someone is born with. Personally, because I've seen people, because I started off being crap at it, but I've gotten a lot better at it. Right. I have my own feelings about, our gifts and how we can develop them and grow and all that other stuff. But that we can get on that topic later, maybe if the conversation goes there. But I do believe that, like, all you have to do if you want to get into this type of work is just go to an antique mall, just every once in a while pick up objects, hold on to them, clear your mind, and don't filter. Just go with what comes to you. Put it down, shake it out, wipe down your hands, pick up a new object. When I do psychometry, I always take off my watch. I always take off my ring so it doesn't get in the way. Same thing when I do spoon bending. I take that stuff off so it doesn't get in the way. I accidentally did bend someone's ring once while we were doing some stuff. Well, whoopsie. It was a cheap ring. She was okay with it. She was not mad. She was like, oh, this is a cheap ring. It's fine. So she was like, oh no, I should have taken it off. It's fine. But I do have people take their rings off if I'm going to do stuff with them as well. So doing that type of, for lack of a better term, more energy-based stuff, There's like, I see it as there's the psychological based stuff I do, and there's the energy based stuff I do. Some people, I won't even try energy based stuff. I'll just do some psychological based stuff, just try and get a read on them, do something that's a little bit more, so you've done readings. So there's a world of difference between like personality reading and oracle reading.
Oh yeah.
There's a world of difference between here, draw me a tree and pull an oracle card. And I know for some people, I'm going to get way more if I have them draw something versus them pulling an oracle card.
Right.
For whatever reason. For some people, it's ego based. For some people, it's literally a part of them. For some people, it's there's just more buy-in. For some people, I just know it's going to work better. For some things, and even just regular performers. It's funny because so weird how more traditional magicians are super skeptical when it comes to psychic phenomena, and like they're like very like ooh boo, but yet they will always say when they're on stage like, oh yeah, I just pick when I have to pick person, I have to pick person who I feel is going to be the best person for this. It's like, you're literally talking about intuition. You are literally talking about it right then and there. You are literally looking at a sea of options and trusting your gut and all of your things to make a snap decision in that moment. Like what? Anyway, to me, it's the equivalent of a musician going, oh, music doesn't exist. It's just sound. Like, you shouldn't cry when you listen to that music. It's just when I hit this note in this piano, it hits this string, which creates a sound wave, which goes into your. Why are you crying? Like, to me, it's the equivalent of it. It's so mind-boggling to me. It's like, this is why we should be doing this. Anyway, I'll get down from that. Soapbox now. Okay, we're good.
Okay. So, talking a little bit about psychics and mediums, what are your opinions of what's going on in the world right now, or I should say in the paranormal field, and what's been going on? I mean, there's a lot of people that have kind of jumped on this I'm a medium train. And to be honest with you, I think that, there are, I do believe that everybody has the opportunity, or I guess the makings for the inside of them to be a medium, because I think that we all have that ability. But it's just certain ones, just choose different paths. They don't believe in it and they don't want to, do it or whatever.
Sure.
But there's other people that are drawn to it, and that's what makes them happy. That's what, helping others and doing that. And that's kind of where I'm at in that sphere of, I've always wanted to help everybody. Sure. And so when I developed my gifts, it was just one of those things where, it just kind of, I accepted for what it was. How do you feel about some of these things with what's going on compared to like entertainment, compared to like some of the low key mediums that have been
sure. So I'm not so very, very quick disclaimer, distinction. I'm not sure how to phrase it right now. I'm not really. I have tons of friends in the paranormal community. I have tons of friends with lots of investigators, mediums, and everything. And I've presented at a couple conferences, but I'm not super active in the like paranormal investigation field. I've been very much in the halo effects of it. And I think it's because I speak the same language, we're into the same things. And when I'm brought into that field, I can be like, this is going to sound weird, but you'll get it. At magic conventions, the person who always kills is the juggler. The person who always gets a standing ovation is the juggler, because he's the only one who's different the whole week, who's actually being more upfront about the skill, and who has to be more, for lack of a better term, use more showmanship too, because he's not hiding behind the secrets and everything. He's being more upfront with all of it, so he has to use more personality and all that stuff. So he's always the one that kills, and he's usually the one that not everyone always knows, or if they do know him, they're like, "Oh, do you know? Oh, you don't know? You don't know Andy Head? Oh, just wait for the show tomorrow night. Oh my gosh, just wait." Right. And I realized at the last paranormal conference I did, I went, "Oh my God, I'm the juggler." Like, oh my God, this is totally what's happened to me.
Right.
Like I know a lot about investigative techniques. I know a lot about, all these different kinds of things, but I've done, I hosted the Woodstock walking tour for a number of years. I've done flashlight tours of various locations. So I've been a part of that world, but when I've done them, I've made sure to get my history right. I don't even really perform anything. I might do something at the very beginning or maybe at the end if someone asks. Just
Right.
like I started the Woodstock, the haunted Woodstock tours by saying, for those of you who don't know who I am or why they asked me to do this, let me show you what my day job is. And then I did a quick piece of mind reading to just show them, hey, this is what I normally do. Now on with the tour. So all that kind of stuff. And then during the tour, just told the stories and kept the history and everything as clear as I could. So so just to be completely clear about that. And it seems like, about a decade ago, a lot of paranormal groups were popping up. Mm-hmm. And now it seems like a lot of mediums are popping up. Mm-hmm. Just from what I'm seeing through social media and the culture and everything else.
Yep.
And it's I mean, everything goes through trends. Everything goes through waves, I mean, I would love to see in a decade Edgar Casey make a comeback and everyone start sleeping on their mail. Like that'd be awesome. That'd be so cool. If that's the next thing, that's the next TikTok trend. Could you imagine? That'd be so cool. Like, it might happen. Who knows?
Who knows?
I mean, the broom standing thing trended. Like, who knows what's going to trend next?
Yeah, I still can't even fathom that.
Yeah. So whenever something, and I get the initial, this is going to be a weird phrase, I get the initial sphincter clench when something that is very counterculture that we have kind of taken as a part of our identity starts to become culture.
Right.
I totally get that. I totally get that. Oh no, I'm not gonna be special anymore.
Right.
I get that initial fear. I've seen it happen with a lot of I'll admit I felt it nearly 15 years ago when the TV show Psych came out. Because I was worried that because he's going all the psychological techniques and saying he's psychic. And I was worried that that everyone was going to be hit to some of those techniques and they wouldn't work anymore and all. And the exact opposite is true. Now more people are into what I'm doing and open to what I'm doing than ever before.
Right.
So I think what's kind of happening, I've seen happen with other art forms too. I think the metaphysical, tarot, mediumship, and all this stuff that's happening, particularly through TikTok, through social media and all that, and how like, oh my gosh, everyone suddenly is like, oh yes, I'm a medium now. Right. Some of it might be wishful thinking and wanting to just be part of a community and being on a bandwagon and if they're not good at it, they're not going to stick with it and they'll move along to the next thing that they are good at. There have been plenty of things I tried that I was not good at. So that's fine. That is a-okay. And so, but the fact that they're now interested in that, I think that means they're much more open to coming to a mind reading show or a psychic medium or an event or something down the line. I think that's great. I think that, I don't think it's going to make it less special. Like I just don't. You look at the amount of, like everyone was worried in the 80s. I just saw that documentary In Search of Darkness, and how in the 80s when VHS tapes came around, you could shoot on VHS. Everyone was worried that, oh my gosh, this is gonna flood the market, which it kind of did. Let's be real. But it did for a moment. It came back for sure. But like everyone was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna ruin horror. There's gonna be such a low barrier of entry that anybody can do it. And and horror's never been better because of it. You know, we've gone through a whole other generation of great horror filmmakers since then, who have just like completely flipped the genre on his head, because it's such a low barrier of entry, because you can just have a camera, a dream, and a decent script. Not even a good script. Not even good actors, just a decent script, just a good idea and a camera is all you need. Like that's all you need. Evil Dead, like that's all you need. Like that's all you need. So I think people. So the fact that tarot and the metaphysical and the paranormal has been so embraced culturally recently, I think is a great thing. I think really is a great thing. I don't think it's gonna make it commonplace. I don't think it's gonna make it mundane. I just don't.
It's kind of like stands right in the middle of that.
Yeah, but it's I mean, the more. My mentor used to say, Eugene Berger, before he passed away, he used to say, we like to make everything a problem, but mysteries are not problems. Problems need to be solved. Mysteries need to be experienced. If we woke up tomorrow and every problem was solved, all the air was breathable, all the water was drinkable, every problem was solved, there would still be mystery. There would still be an insurmountable amount of mystery. And the fact that more people are open to this, maybe we'll know more in the next 100 years than we've been able to find out in the last 100 years.
Yeah,
maybe. Maybe we'll, now there's the dark side of that too. Do I think there's people who are going to take advantage? People who I think are going to maybe not be the most sincere, or ethical, or honest. I mean, sure, but that's in every industry.
I was just gonna say that doesn't have to be just in the paranormal and everything.
There's
everywhere.
There's people. There's a guy who used to just sell magic tricks in magic magazines. He had a funny little drawing of himself. His name was Hank Lee. He had big glasses and frizzy hair. He was like this and all that. He sold card tricks and he sold little coins with his picture on them and everything. And he is in jail now because he stole people's credit card information after they bought magic tricks and went on spending sprees and all that stuff. And it's funny. I've got all these old magazines and sometimes it shows up. I'm like, oh God, oh no. And it's like, like lowest rung of the barrel. Like it happens. For every one story of an unethical paranormalist or psychic who bilks. And here's the other thing too, the person that they usually have taken advantage of, I wonder how many of those people are either on the spectrum or have some other kind of physical thing or mental thing going on with them in relation to that as well. Again, I don't want to make too many assumptions, and I don't want to be like, well, if you're dumb enough to fall for that, you must also have something physically wrong with you. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just curious that since we haven't looked into that stuff. But what I do know is there's more people who don't have those things who get taken in way more by televangelists. Who get taken in way more, where it's like, oh wait, this guy didn't use church funds properly. There's way more stories about that than there are about the one shady psychic every 3 years. And of course the one shady psychic is on the cover of every article, news article and everything. And the 18 shady pastors and priests are they'll make it, but it's not nearly as juicy. And right. I get it, as someone who like works in the public eye, who has, worked with publicity, who's worked with, hey, let's try and get some buzz going for this. Like, let's use this phrase rather than this because it's gonna create more buzz.
Yeah,
like I get it from that standpoint.
Yeah, I think.
But at the same time,
you said it the way it is. It's who gets the buzz. You know what I mean? Who gets that? What's the buzzword going to be on the front page? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but at the same time, though, it's like, and yes, it stinks that there's that negative stereotype on us, but at the same time, it's a low bar. Oh, yeah. all I have to do is be honest.
Yeah.
All I have to do is be nice, sincere, and honest.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. That's all. That's the barrier of entry. Okay, right, I can do that.
Right.
I can do that. Yeah. So yeah, and I think, and again, everyone I've met in the field, I have a very good friend, Lauren Purcell, who's a psychic medium. She's in the Crystal Lake area. Yeah. She. If you haven't had her on the show yet, you should look into getting her on.
I most definitely will then.
Because she's done some great stuff, and we've done some stuff together. Actually, this last year at the Dole Mansion, she did the paranormal tours for Halloween, and we did a couple seances as well over the last few months. And she's great, but I won't say who these people were, but we ran into some self-proclaimed psychics, and they were one of those things where like their titles and their business cards were like a novel.
Oh,
like, you know what it's mean? When someone says like, where it's like, psychic, clairaudient, medium, it's just all the words just boom, 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 boom. It's like, and it's like, oh, I'm an author too. It's like, I know, here's your book. It's on your business card. And like, they were like, we did not get a very sincere vibe from them, and we will just leave it at that. Right. But again, like we'll just leave it at that. And I'm not even saying if they were male or female. That's why I'm saying them. So right. So I don't even want to give. I'll put it this way: if they were really psychic, they know we're talking about them. How about that?
Right.
Spoiler alert! I don't think they know we're talking about them. But and I think now I think they thought they were, but just didn't. They were never put in a situation where they had to have that. Not be challenged, but never had to like really work, if that made sense.
Nope, I know. Yeah.
I think you and everyone else on the call or on the show knows what we're talking about.
Yeah. If you don't do the legwork, if you don't have any, it's almost like this. You guys, I do a lot of analogies. It's like there's a new hottest band, and you can only find it in the magazine. But you can't listen to the music.
I'll put it this way. They said that they made their own tarot and oracle decks. And when I mentioned Pamela Coleman Smith, they said, "Who's that?"
Oh, okay.
It's like, okay, if you don't even know the illustrator of the original Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Yep. I get it.
And again, I'm not being that snob who's like, you have to know the whole history or you aren't a real true mystic. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, if you have done your research, if this is truly your gift and passion, that is just something you should know. If it's something that you think you can do because you've been told you're special, so we'll just or you think you can get away with it and no one's going to challenge you.
Right.
Then long story short, their storefront did not last very long. So
okay.
So again, the problem took care of itself, and that's the other thing too. And I often, and I said, like, if that's the case, it's probably not gonna the people who are genuine with this, the people who work hard at it, who are sincere at it, it's worth
right.
they're gonna hang around for a while.
Right.
So
It's kind of worth the price of admission.
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So let's talk. We have probably about 10 minutes left. So why don't we talk a little bit about some of your upcoming shows that you have upcoming?
Yes. So very, very quickly, I'll tell you what's going on for the remaining spring and summer months. We're recording this in the spring of 2023, and then you are going to get the official announcement. We're gonna do the big announcement in a couple weeks, but you're gonna get the inside scoop on something coming up, and we kind of alluded to it already. So first things first. In Fridays in May, I will be in Lake Geneva. I'm moving out of the Dole Mansion. There's lots of cool stuff happening in the works. You're about to hear what one of those things are. But to offset my dates in May, the Tristan Chris Magic Theater was very kind enough for me to allow me to come in and use their front row to finish out my last 4 Fridays in May. And there's still a few tickets for some of those dates because the shows were 13 people and their front row seats 19 people. Their front row was bigger than my whole tiny venue at the Dole Mansion. So yeah, they were very kind to do that. So if someone does want to check that out, feel free to come check that out. By the way, everything I'm going to mention is you can find it all at joediamondlive.com. Or at Joe Diamond Live on all social media and americasgreatestmindreader.com. So that's a catch-all for everything for all of this. There's a tab on my website that says schedule. I'm at the Maxwell Mansion once a month. Also, for 3 dates, and it looks like we're going to be adding more because these are already selling pretty well. Once a month in June, July, and August in Lake Geneva, I will be at the Black Point Estate and Gardens, which is a beautiful home on the lake.
Yes,
it is owned by the state, and so real quick, you'll appreciate this, Jay. The gentleman who set me up with this, he came to my Halloween show last year with Thomas Lennon, the famous actor from Reno 911 and Night at the Museum and Supergirl. He lives in Lake Geneva. Tom's a fan of mine, which is still crazy to me. That's a whole other story. And he brought his friend David to my Halloween show. And David was like, "Oh, would you want to come do something at another house?" And David told me last Halloween that they just did a 12-person, sat around the table, and he talked for an hour about the history of spiritualism. And I was like, we are now friends. That's right up my alley. So we started working on an event there. It's called Paranormal Parlor Games.
Oh, nice.
So here's the one thing with that place. It doesn't have a lot of paranormal history. There's one kind of story that I don't want to spoil because he tells it when people ask him about the place. But it's kind of funny, but also cool. But because it's owned by the state and everything else, they want to tie it all into history. So everything I'll be doing in the show is going to be themed around different paranormal experiments and or parlor games from days gone by. So I'll be talking about Harry Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and I'll be having someone pick a word out of a Sherlock Holmes book, and I'll say, okay, Sherlock Holmes is more psychological. Let me see if I can get this word psychologically. And then, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, he was a spiritualist. Let me see if I can get this more spiritually. So little things like that. So that's those dates are all listed on the site as well. There's 3 dates. We're keeping those small to about 13 people. And if those go well, we might add more for the autumn and maybe October months. So the state has to clear that. So a few more hoops to jump through than normal with some of the places I work, or perform at. But it's such a beautiful place, and so either way, there's 3 shows for that, and then you are going to get the scoop for this. Okay. Since I mentioned you mentioned this place, and we talked a little bit about Halloween. Let me double check that I'm getting the the dates right here. Just going to triple check. Yes, October 27th, Friday, October 27th. And Halloween night, October 31st, I will be returning to the Woodstock Opera House for Halloween at the Opera House. Nice. 2 shows. They're completely different shows than my America's Greatest Mind Reading show. There's an intermission. Part 1 is mind reading, and part 2 is gonna be, I don't want to spoil it. Part 2 is spooky shit. That's all I'll say for now. Like that's the vague title I'm giving for part 2 of the show. Okay. It's I'm real excited. Basically we planned that the night of the last show. We were like, we both all looked at each other, like me, the people at the Opera House. We were all just like, Halloween?
Yeah.
It was like, yeah.
Okay.
And here's the thing that you and your listeners especially will want to know. There will also be, for both those shows, 13 tickets for VIP flashlight tours of the theater after the show.
Oh, nice.
So it'll be just 13 people, just you and me. We'll explore the Elvira seat up in the balcony, and we'll come down to the ground floor. We'll end on stage, lit by the ghost light, and we'll do a seance with a spirit bottle, which is one of my favorite oracles. If you look me up on YouTube, there's a video of me demonstrating it on a couple channels. But it's a pendulum inside of a bottle. For those of you who have used pendulums before, but it's really cool. I love it. I can't wait to do that. There's only going to be 13 of those, and tickets go on sale on June 11th.
Okay.
So if I'm telling your audience about this now, because those VIP tickets
are going to go fast.
Yep, they are going to go fast. Yep. I don't care that it's June. I don't care if it's going to be months out, everything else. And we're not going to be adding more. We could only do those dates because those were the only dates, because they have other stuff going on the whole rest of the week, like Rocky Horror Picture Show and all that. We won't be able to be adding more dates. So I know sometimes in the past I've been able to add dates and everything else. I'm being right up front right now, like, especially when I was like, oh yes, let's do this. Let's announce this. And I almost went, because you were very kind enough, we did have to reschedule this. And I almost told you in the text, because I was waiting to hear back to get the contract signed and everything, but it wasn't quite there yet, because I almost wanted to say, like, I will give you good news if we can reschedule, but it still wasn't like the ink wasn't dry yet, so to speak, the digital ink yet. But the contract is signed. It's going to happen. We'll be announcing that on my social media and mailing list in the next few days. But for your audience who watch this show, and the people in my groups who I will tell to watch this and stick to the end for a big announcement, they'll be the first ones to hear the official announcement on this. So
wow.
So yeah, so it's a dream come true. I couldn't be more thrilled to be going back there, especially for Halloween night. It's gonna be a blast. It's gonna be a ball.
That is fantastic. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we had mind reader Joe Diamond, and I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. I mean, like I said,
thank you, Jay.
This has been in the works for a while, and it's just a matter of scheduling and this and that. But no, this has been such a fantastic time, and your knowledge on what you do, and just the way you entertain the people, and how they adore you. It's just without dispute. So I want to thank you again.
That means a lot. Viewers. Thank you so much, Jay. Really appreciate it. I'm gonna call it.
Yeah, we will definitely have to get together again.
Yes, I psychically predict my answer will be yes if you ever ask me to do this again. So all right, because this was lovely. I'd love to chat again sometime soon, anytime. All right.
Definitely, yes. So I want to thank my viewers, and I want to thank Joe again. And you'll find all this episode. It's up on YouTube. It's up on Facebook, and then I will upload it all the way to iHeartRadio, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. It'll be up there. So
great.
I want to thank everybody, and everybody have a fantastic Monday.
Yes.